overview of how the normal distribution is used in business. Recall from week 1 the empirical rule. First, over 2/3 of the data fall between plus and minus 1 standard deviation from the mean. Second, over 95% of the data fall between plus and minus 2 standard deviations from the mean. Third, over 99.7% of the data fall between plus and minus 3 standard deviations from the mean in a normally distributed data set. Keeping these benchmarks in mind will be helpful as we explore how to use the normal distribution in a practical business setting. Let's say that I want to start a new business in my local town. It would be very helpful to know if the people in the town could afford to purchase my products or buy my services. I was able to get some data from the local Chamber of Commerce about household incomes in my town. The key summary statistics that I was interested in were the mean and standard deviation, which are listed as follows. And for ease of explanation, I will set the mean to 75,000, which I will round off to 75, and the standard deviation of 19,000, which I'll round off to 19, just for ease of working with the numbers. My first question is to determine how many families have a household income of less than $60,000. If too many families make less than $60,000, my business idea may not work for this town. As you can see from the graph, about 21.5% of the families earn less than $60,000. That may be good news, as we can infer from the complement rule that almost 80% of the families make more than $60,000. I'm also thinking that I might offer some higher-end products and/or services. So I might want to know how many families earn more than $100,000. It looks like less than 10% of the families earn more than $100,000 per year. This may not be enough to offer higher-end products or services, and I should be wary of how much business I could really do at the high end of the market. We can also infer from the two probabilities that I've just calculated that 69% earn between $60,000 and $100,000. Another way to use the normal distribution would be to determine the middle 50% range of household incomes. This display shows that 0.5 or 50% of all households earn between $62,000 and $88,000 if we round off to the nearest $1,000. That is a much narrower range of only 26,000, which is also known as the interquartile range, or IQR. In addition, 62,000 becomes the first quartile and 88,000 becomes the third quartile. We can also see this with a box plot. Notice here that the length of each tail is about equal to the width of the IQR, which shows a classic normal distribution. This is something that you can and should look for when determining if a data set is normally distributed. This also shows the power of the normal distribution, having much of the data clustered around and near the mean. While 50% may not seem very high, it's often easier to plan around a narrow range of values, even though we only capture half of the entire town's income picture. Here's one last look at a 95% middle, where I tie the visual display to the empirical rule. Here, the middle 95% ranges from about 38,000 to 112,000. You can get pretty close to those numbers by using the second empirical rule. Start by taking the mean, and then adding and subtracting 2 times the standard deviation, as you see here. In my next video, I will show you how to do these calculations in Excel on your own. I will refer back to these same displays, so keep them in mind as we venture forward.